All right, completing the square, part two. I've got this first example on the top here. X squared plus 4x equals 4. I'm sorry, x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals y. All right, the first thing I did was substitute in a 0 for y, because remember, when we're trying to find x-intercepts, it's the point where the graph crosses the x-axis, and no matter where that point is, the y-coordinate is going to be 0, because you're just moving across left or right to that point from the origin, and you're not moving up or down. So in this case, if the x-intercept ends up being at -2, then it's the point -2, comma 0, because you're going left 2 spaces and you're not moving up or down. So we put in a 0 for y, and we solve what is going to make the left-hand side equal to 0. So in this first example, x squared plus 4x plus 4, it factors real nicely. There's two numbers that multiply to give 4 and also add to give 4, and those two numbers are actually the same number. It's the number 2. So it's 2 times 2 and 2 plus 2, which would be x plus 2 times x plus 2. And when you have two of the same things being multiplied together, you can square them, like 4 times 4 is 4 squared, or 5 times 5 is 5 squared. So this is x plus 2 squared. So that's how that equation would factor. Now, in these next four examples, I just went straight to substituting in a 0 for y. And I just kind of went in order, went 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So x squared plus 6x plus 9, that's x plus 3 squared. 3 times 3 is 9, 3 plus 3 is 6. 4 times 4 is 16, 4 plus 4 is 8. 5 times 5 is 25, 5 plus 5 is 10. 6 squared, 6 plus 6, so on and so forth. Now, you can do this for odd numbers, meaning if your b is odd. So I could have done x squared plus 5x, but half of an odd number is a decimal, 2.5, or it's 5 over 2. And when you square that, it gets messy, and it's really not beneficial at that point to complete the square. It's probably just better to do the quadratic formula. So that's why I skipped the ones where b is an odd number. And in your homework for Friday, there's only 3 problems, and b is an even number for all 3 of them. So you won't have to worry about messy decimals and stuff like that. They'll all look something like this. Now, the next slide I'm going to show you is actually what the homework is going to look like, which is slightly more complicated, but not bad. So I split my board in half because I gave you 2 examples here, so I'll work through them one at a time with you. So the first example here, x squared plus 14x equals 15. So this is similar to the homework from last night, except last night it was just x squared plus 14x, and it asked you, what would you have to add to x squared plus 14x to make it a perfect square trinomial? Well, that would be the number 49. You would take half of 14, which is 7, and square it, just like this first slate that I showed you. Half of 6 is 3, 3 squared is 9. Half of 8 is 4, 4 squared is 16. Half of 10 is 5, 5 squared is 25, so on and so forth. So now we're up to 14. You would take half of that and square it, which is 49. So you'd want to add 49 to this to make it a perfect square trinomial. Well, whatever you add to one side, you have to add to the other side. So that's what I did in line 2, is I added 49 to both sides of the equation. Now, x squared plus 14x plus 49 factors into x plus 7 squared, just like I was showing you all those examples on the first slate. And 15 plus 49 is 64. Now you take the square root of each side, and x plus 7 equals plus or minus 8. So you're going to have 2 different answers. You're going to have to solve for x by subtracting 7 to the other side to get x by itself. So you're going to have negative 7 plus 8, because it's plus or minus 8, or you're going to have negative 7 minus 8. So you have to have a negative 7 plus 8 or negative 7 minus 8, and that'll give you your 2 answers, positive 1 or negative 15. And you're done. You've solved that problem. Those would be your 2 x-intercepts. You would cross at 1, 0, and you would cross at negative 15, 0. All right, so the second example is basically the same thing as the first, but I gave you a negative number on the right. So now half of 16 is 8, and 8 squared is 64. So you're going to add 64 to each side. So my left-hand side is a perfect square trinomial. Now it's x plus 8 squared. And on my right-hand side, negative 15 plus 64 is positive 49. Right, and you take the square root of each side, and you get x plus 8 equals plus or minus 7. You subtract 8 to the other side, and you're subtracting 8 from positive 7 or from negative 7. So you get a negative 1 or you get a negative 15. So the problems are kind of similar, and these are also exactly like what you're going to see in the 3 problems on the homework tonight. So I think these are helpful. Hopefully you will agree with me, and you won't have any trouble doing the 3 problems. Good luck.